Good morning, everybody, and welcome back to your Lunch Break Live. My name is Ivana Hurrenque if you're new here, and if you're not, thank you for coming back. Today is Tuesday, I almost said Monday. Today is Tuesday, January the 10th, and today I am joined by a very special guest, and I think we're going to have a very interesting conversation. This is Dr. Jeremy Towns. Dr. Towns here is a resident at UAB, finishing up his residency there in emergency medicine, and he is also a former NFL football player. He did spend some time with the Buffalo Bills as well. Now, Dr. Towns, we've all been talking about the Buffalo Bills recently, and that is because of the unfortunate injury that happened with Damar Hamlin about a week ago now, just a little bit over a week ago. So I know that is the first thing that people wonder when I say you played for the Bills. Unfortunately, it's not about what you did there at this point. It's what about Damar? And that's a fair question because everybody who, even if you didn't want to see that, if you weren't watching Monday Night Football, at this point you've seen that injury. And luckily we were able to talk about this and smile about it because it seems like he's making a miraculous recovery there. So I want to ask you, as a former NFL player, again as a tackle, and then also now as a doctor, what did you think when you saw Damar Hamlin go down, and what did you expect to happen there? Did you expect us to be talking about him sending pictures from his hotel, or not hotel, his hospital room, and cheering on his team there? Did you expect that to be the outcome?
So I'll be honest, I didn't see the injury live, but like I mentioned before, I had a stream of text messages come in, and people sent me a link to the video. And anytime you see someone who experienced cardiac arrest, you never know because you can get a pulse back, and the patient can have where they survive in the hospital for a certain period of time, but you always worry about neurological recovery, meaning that did the brain receive blood fast enough or quickly enough while they were down? So I was always hoping for the best, but the physician side of me was always speculating. But then the other side of it too is that this is a young, healthy, elite athlete who uh, his heart is in the ultimate shape, his lungs are in ultimate shape, and so you figure that if anyone can have a positive outcome, it would be a guy such as Damar Hamlin.
Well, and again, I know you played for the Bills there, played for a couple of years there in the NFL as a defensive tackle. So you know about putting your body on the line every day and not only every game day, but even in practice. So when you played, whether it was for the Bills or just your time in the NFL, was that something that you thought about? Did you think about these possibly life-threatening injuries happening while you were there? Or was that something that you weren't in doctor mode at that point? You put that out of your mind?
In some ways, I would imagine that I thought about it being a sports medicine major at Sanford. Uh, in the sports medicine program, they had started talking about concussions, and it was early on with CTE and that type of thing. So it made me start thinking about these subconcussive impacts, where it's not a concussion, but it's cumulative over time when you keep hitting your head against an opponent. But that would be something that would happen over time. As far as seeing something that acutely happens where you're putting your life on the line, I never thought about that. I never thought about my heart stopping. I really never thought about passing out on the field. I never thought about being paralyzed or any of that nature. If anything, I thought about these injuries that I'm sustaining. Would they catch up with me down the road? But never thinking that I would possibly lose my life on the field.
And that's an interesting point there because we have talked so much more in the last couple of years about CTE, about concussions, and about what happens after the cumulative effect, like you said, of concussions there. When you thought about what could be the effect of having put your body through this for years later in life, did it make you consider wanting to stop playing football, or was that just something that was just a factor in your decision to keep playing?
Well, how I look at it, to be honest, the NFL does get a bad rap. What scares me more than anything is that, the NFL is high profile, is under a microscope. But what about all these players who played since they were 4 and 5 years old, and they matriculate through college and they've played, they don't make it to the NFL? Those are the people I'm sometimes more worried about because, I was in the NFL around year 2013, 2014. They do a lot more to take care of the players. We rarely, do like live things in practice where we're really trying to hit each other, really hard. It's more of getting in position, showing the coach that you can get in position to make the play. It's called what they call in the NFL. You have to practice like a professional, and it's a lot different from practicing in college and high school and little league. And you don't really do a lot of these one-on-one drills where you're ramming your head into your opponent. So when I look at it, you know, it made me think about how we probably practiced in high school and college was way different, because it takes a while for the knowledge to kind of move down the pipeline for people to realize, okay, you don't have to necessarily uh, fully tackle each other. You can get in position to make the tackle, and there's a lot of other ways to work on some skills that I think before coaches thought that you had to really be going full speed and hitting each other to work on the drills.
That's an interesting point there, and I know you don't know Damar. You did again share this team that you played for, and it seems like how the Bills and the staff there treated Damar Hamlin after that collapse on the field could have made all of the difference in his recovery. Tell me a little bit about that, and tell me, have you ever had an experience? Thankfully, you haven't had one. It sounds like this severe, but any experience with these teams and their medical staff, and are they trained to do things like these Bills trainers did?
Oh, I haven't had an experience seeing it done live, right before me. But these are medical professionals, athletic trainers, the other staff, the EMTs that are around. But specifically when you think about athletic trainers, they're heroes in the sports world because when you don't have a doctor, when you don't have a nurse there, usually a team will have an athletic trainer and they're certified to do CPR. They might not get as many reps at doing CPR as someone who works in the hospital like myself. But uh, you know, the data shows from research that the quicker you can get someone to start doing CPR and access to a defibrillator, it means all the world in the outcome of an individual who becomes a victim of cardiac arrest.
And I know again that you're right now you're in emergency room medicine at UAB, finishing your residency there, hoping for a future in sports medicine. So this is right up your alley. Are you seeing or have you seen in your time at UAB and your residency there a lot of head injuries that are coming from sports that are coming into the emergency room? A lot of other maybe shortness of breath or other injuries there that are serious.
When you think about it, whenever I think about uh, the injury burden of a particular group, you have to think about what are their baseline characteristics. And so when we start thinking about sport, these are usually healthy individuals that are young. And so you're not going to really see a lot of heart issues, even a lot of lung issues. And specifically at UAB, it's mostly adults. So we would see like a college athlete, but as an emergency medicine resident, we do rotate at children's. Usually, a lot of these things are things that the athletic trainer can manage. If a kid has asthma, they usually already know the kid has asthma. They have their inhaler there on the sideline, and so they can administer the inhaler for them. Uh, EMS is there, and so they can give nebulized albuterol and drugs such as that. So a lot of times we don't really have to see the athlete come to the emergency department. Now, if EMS has to get involved, they probably will go ahead and transport them. But these individuals usually have healthy lungs and a healthy heart, so we don't see a lot of that. Sometimes we will see an isolated head injury, but if the athletic trainer can diagnose the patient with a concussion, the, unless there are alarm signs where there's a lot of nausea, or really not really nausea, but a lot of vomiting, the patient doesn't come back to baseline quickly, then that probably be a reason to bring them to the ER. But as it relates to concussion, uh, there's really no role. If we get a CT of the head, if we CAT scan the head, that won't show us a concussion. And so it's really a clinical diagnosis. So a lot of times we don't have to see these individuals in the emergency department.
I'm sure you've also gotten this question a lot recently as well, and that is should our kids be playing sports like football? Should we be putting them out there at a young age and exposing them to what could be this cumulative effect there from concussions or other injuries? And I'm going to go ahead and give a disclaimer here. And I think everybody knows that I love football. I think it's safe to say that you love football as well. I know you played at Samford under Coach Sullivan there, and then ended up again playing NFL. So I think it's safe to say you love football. I do as well. But this is still, I think, a fair question. It's a lot of questions that I think a lot of parents are thinking about right now as well.
Yeah, it's a polarized topic of whether kids should be playing football or not. I would argue at a young age, it's probably best for a kid to be playing flag football. With us having such an epidemic with obesity with young people, they need to be in sport. That's one way to kind of ward off obesity and that type of thing, get individuals active at a young age. Hopefully, they can keep this active lifestyle through the lifespan. But as it relates to football, I'm more a proponent of now kids playing flag football so they can learn to be athletic, learn to get in good athletic position, how to move, learn the game more, and then transition into full contact football. But I do think it needs to be some, uh, the game needs to be reformed at the lower levels. Little league coaches are doing all they can. They work other jobs and that type of thing. But just some of the drills that they do, I think, can be modified because I think a lot of these there's no reason why a kid should be sustaining concussion after concussion in elementary and middle school. That's just absurd. But I do think football can be made to be safe, but at the same time, when two individuals are running into each other at full speed, you kind of understand what comes with the risk.
There's only so much safety that can be done there, and especially in looking at tackle. I have obviously never played defensive tackle. I take that back. I did a powder puff game at UAB, which, to be fair, could have been more aggressive than I think some of the games you might have played in, Dr. Towns. But that aside, there's not a whole lot of ways to make that type, especially that position, safe. You and I were kind of joking before about if you were a position like a kicker, then you're kind of in the golden zone, right? You can really, in most cases, avoid sustained hits. But when you are in a position like you played, unfortunately, that's kind of part of the game, is you getting hit over and over, which also leads me to ask how exactly that is enjoyable. But I'm interested in how now, after becoming a doctor, how do you watch football? What's your reactions? Do you watch it the same way that you used to after, even when you were playing and then after you were playing?
Well, to be honest, I'm usually doing so much that I don't get to watch a lot of football. I do keep up with a lot of my friends that I played college ball with, like Nick Williams, Mike Pierce, James Bradbury, and those guys. I keep up with them by looking at the clips and stuff the next day, what's posted on social media and so forth. But I don't get to watch the game as much as I used to. And partly because it becomes so analytical. When you go to the NFL, football is a job in the NFL. And on the outside is glamorized. And some days people always ask me, how's the NFL? Some days it was the best day of my life. And then some days I would literally say, this is it. Like, is this it? Because it's a job and you don't really realize it until you get there. It is a full-time job. It's high pressure, high stakes, and everybody's competing. You're competing with the people on your team as well as the people on the other 31 teams in the NFL. Because if you get cut from one team, you want to have a good enough resume to be able to get to another team. And so when you look at it, it really is a job.
And I'm sure too, emergency room medicine does not allow you to have a whole lot of TV time there as well. But I can also see that once you work in a field for so long, you just kind of want to unplug after a while. So I can see that. I also can imagine though that that's a little bit disheartening sometimes. You think about something that took up so much of your life, and now and also I'm sure having to listen to commentators, listen to fans who are very aggressive and wanting to tell everybody how to do it. And I'm sure in your mind you think, well, you have never been there. How can you tell me how to do that?
That's so true. That is probably one of the hardest things to do is listen to fans who a lot of times do not have the slightest idea of what it takes to play. And I still do a football camp every year to give back to kids. I like using football as a tool, and that's what I forget the guy's name, but a guy came and talked to us while I was in college, and that's what he explained. He's like, football is a vehicle, and it got me a free education, allowed me to meet great people, and that type of thing. But as I got older and as I matured, I realized that sports aren't life. That is so many things bigger than life. I think Coach Sullivan, uh, he always preached that the athletics were about the relationships, and so uh, I like how sport can bring people from all classes, religions, ethnicities together uh, to for one goal and to cheer on their teams. I love that aspect of it. So I always like those positive aspects of sports, but it's kind of like we have to realize, like, at what point are we putting too much weight on sports? Because what I've also seen is that eh, a lot of people don't get a chance to play NFL. And so sometimes they can feel like it was all a waste. But sports was supposed to teach us character, it's supposed to teach us work ethic, it was supposed to teach us how to not give up and perseverance and that type of thing. So it's a lot of other intangibles that sports delivers that you really can't get in unless you play organized. And when I say sport too, team sports, because there's a big difference. You learn how to work with others and that type of thing, and you can readily tell people who've played team sports versus people who haven't.
Do you think that playing football, and not necessarily in the NFL, but growing up playing football, playing in high school and in college, do you think that made you a better doctor?
I do think it made me a better doctor. One, I realized that you can own, like, if you want to go somewhere far, then you're gonna need other people to help you get there. And so, like I mentioned in our time talking before we got on, before we became live, is that a guy named DeCoven Burrell talked me into playing football a week and a half before the first game, my senior year in high school. So if it weren't for this young man, I would have never got a chance to go to Sanford, never had the opportunity to overcome two season-ending injuries, and then get a chance uh, to play in the NFL. And so sports really do allow you to realize, how to be on a team. So when I'm in the emergency department, I'm talking to the nurses, I'm talking to the patient care techs, the other physicians, the environmental services staff. I mean, I see it as a big team and not just that, hey, I'm the doctor, everyone should listen to me. I like the camaraderie that comes with medicine, especially being emergency medicine, because when a patient comes in, it's our entire team that it takes to try to get the patient the best outcome possible.
Absolutely. And again, I know emergency medicine and sports medicine plays into all of those things. But tell me about your football camp. I think if I was sending a kid to football camp, I would want the one that was run by a doctor.
Wow, yeah. So my football camp, you can tell I get so excited talking about it. It's a 1 day football camp. We usually do it at Legion Field. It's totally free. It's usually in July. But it's high energy. It's exciting. Uh, I bring in positive people like John Cook, who played at UAB and then played pro, but then also is a strength coach with the United States Football League. I bring in people like that that are very motivational and give kids not only just a game of football, but help them be on a positive trajectory in life. So it's exciting. I bring in other NFL players like Joe Webb, who also went to Winona High School, and then a lot of my NFL friends. So it's just like one big party where we encourage kids and try to push them and help them get on the right track, learn leadership skills and that type of thing.
That sounds like so much fun. The July part threw me a little bit thinking about being outside for a day in July, but otherwise that sounds like a great day. We'll have to make sure to come this year. I do have one more question from you. This is from my friend TJ. He says, in what ways did the stress and the competitiveness from the NFL help prepare you for medical school?
The stress and competitiveness. Let's see. Well, one, you realize that it's a way to channel the stress of football to excitement. And I think that's one of the biggest things I learned is that, stress can be a negative thing, but if you can channel it to excitement, then it becomes a positive thing. It can motivate you and push you. And so in medical school, what I did was, like, for a big test, I would just always tell myself, go back to the basics. It allows you to be able to reduce your anxiety during the test and just tell yourself, hey, I've prepared for this. I know uh, the information, and you just go out and, I say go out like I'm talking about football, but just go to the test and you just give your best effort on the test.
And then I also have a comment here from Marletha. And she says, I'm a surgical technologist, and I've always said that everybody's important. Everybody's part of the team to get the patient a better outcome there. So loving the camaraderie there as well from the medical professionals. Dr. Towns, this has been so interesting. And again, just your perspective is so unique, having done so many incredible things in your life. I know you will continue to do so many more. And we just appreciate you taking a little bit of your time on your off day, which I know must be rare, to talk to me today. So thank you.
Thank you.
Everybody watching, thank you so much. We will see you next time.